What is up, race fans? This is the HSL Diecast Racing channel. You're watching the NASCAR Nitro Series, and we're at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Coca Cola 600. That's right, it's a 600-mile race. Means each of the segments has 6 laps. A lot of time for things to go wrong, a lot of time for cars to land on the roof. Here you see the Coca Cola vehicles, the Coca Cola delivery trucks, the Coca Cola stock car here at the track, all ready for today's Coca Cola 600. This is going to be a real good one. We have a couple of more new drivers, including a old-time fan favorite from both Rhino's channel and Lord Shank's channel. If you haven't guessed it yet, it's Vinny Oons 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 Nightlife. He'll be qualifying with some of the other rookie drivers towards the end of the video. And to celebrate reaching the halfway point of the season, we have a couple of exciting announcements. First is, if you guess the winner of the race correctly in the comment section before the race is uploaded, we'll send you a Hot Wheels car at the end of the season. Just message me the address to mail it, and we'll send you a Hot Wheels car. And this goes for all the subsequent races too. Doesn't cost you anything, just guess a driver. So without further ado, here we're going to the qualifying. We're going to start with our points leader, Ross Chastain, coming off of back-to-back victories. He's looking pretty smooth so far. It's a little squirrely in the corner there. Comes out of the turn, hits the wall, and that is a 1678. Now Sterling Marlin, he's in on points. He's in second in points. He got another podium last week at the Riverside Speedway. Looking much smoother in the turn than Ross. He's going to probably have a better qualifying time, and he goes off the track right before the finish line. He'll be starting in the back. And now for third place in points, we have Jimmy. Jimmy's our Daytona 500 winner. He's been hit or miss ever since, either getting a top 5 or a DNF in all 5 of the races so far this season. And Jimmy slides into the corner, looks a lot smoother coming out of it. Looks like he'll finish the lap, and that will be a 1878. A little slower than Ross Chastain. And here's Alan Kulwicki. He won at Bristol, the Bristol Bloodbath, our last car standing that didn't end up on his roof. He's been a solid competitor, getting in the top 10 pretty much every race ever since. Solidly in the top 5 in points. And that is a lightning fast lap. That's a 1569. And here we have Johnny Benson, our highest ranked rubber tire car, and our highest ranked driver without a win so far in the series. And he goes through the turn smoothly, brushes the wall, and starts to lose momentum. And he still crosses the line. That's 19.56. And here we have Pete Hamilton. He made his debut at Bristol in the second race of the season, got a podium finish there, and hasn't really done much since, unfortunately. And that's a DNF. He'll be starting towards the back. And here's Ricky Craven. Ricky Craven's been a pretty solid driver, or the other one of 2 drivers with rubber tires that's in the top 12 in points right now. And Ricky Craven looks to have a good lap going. Enters the first turn pretty smoothly, and he loses momentum midway through. It's going to be a very slow lap if he finishes. Kind of gets sideways. And he will be in on points, just starting towards the back. He does finish it, but that's over 22 seconds. There's a solid points cushion for him, so he won't have to worry about that, but it'll be hard to pass at this track. Now, Richard Petty's going down the track. He had a podium finish in the Daytona 500, but his first race that wasn't a DNF since then was last week. And Richard Petty has a 1572. That's currently good for second place. Now here's Todd Bodine, consistently one of the fastest qualifiers, but usually gets a DNF. He's had a couple of decent finishes that keeps him on the edge of the top 12. Currently sitting 9th in points. And that's a 14:25. That's a blistering fast lap. He's going to get in. That is a pole position by over a second and a half. Now here is Rusty Wallace, the highest ranked older racing champions car. And he loses a lot of momentum in the second half of the turn. And he will be starting in last place. Unless Bill Elliott or Jeff Fuller wrecks. Because he's getting in on points. Now here's Bill Elliott. Another fast but very unstable car. This car set a lot of really blistering qualifying laps, but has only one main event appearance so far this season because of El Recco's. And that runs a 16-16. He'll be starting towards the front. And here's Jeff Fuller, our final 12th place driver. And the gates are down. That's a wild amount of pushback. That's the most I've seen so far this qualifying session. And Jeff Fuller's all over the place. This is not going to be a good lap. He's sliding up and down the track. And he hits the wall at an angle, grinds up against it, and that turns out to be an 1897. Might get somebody without the points in on speed. It might not, but he is in on points at the very least. So here is our 13th place driver, the first one that's got to qualify on speed. This is D Driver, and this is not going to be a good lap. He just hit that wall too violently, loses all his speed at the top of the corner, and lands on his roof. Only a couple points out of the top 12. What a wasted opportunity. Now here's David Reagan in 14th. Some more violent pushback from the gate. David Reagan gets a good start there. He's gone pretty straight so far, hugging the inside of the track. And he loses all of his momentum in the second half of the turn. That is also a DNF. And now it's E. Marshall's turn down the track. He's had a couple of good qualifying runs. Not very stable during the racing action, though. And E. Marshall gets off to a decent start. Looks pretty smooth going into the turns. Doesn't lose much momentum. Ooh, he does turn a little sideways there. But he'll finish the lap. That is a 17-16. And now up next is Ricky Rudd. Ricky Rudd, the same, very similar casting to Sterling Marlin, who crashed in qualifying but is high in points. And he's on his roof. He will not be racing. And this is Ryan Blaney. Had one of the fastest laps in qualifying at Daytona, has not done much since. And he leaves the gates, grinds up against the wall, and peters out in the middle of the turn. That is a DNF. And I'm not sure what it is with these Lionel castings after the Daytona 500. They've kind of lost all their speed except for the Martin Truex car. He had a couple good finishes, but also some qualifying DNFs. But you can see him there stalled out on the track. And now it's time for Jeremy Mayfield, the other number 12 car. He had his first good finish of the season last year. Got a top 5, almost won. Like to call him the pinball wizard after he ricocheted across the track on the final lap and gave the win to Ross Chastain. Also had some pinball-y actions in the segment races. And that was a lightning fast lap of 14.94. That is currently good for second place. He'll probably have a front row starting spot. Now here's Jeff Gordon. He came close to getting into the top 12 at the start of the season, but kind of slowed down after a couple of top 10s to start the year. And that's a DNF. He will not be racing. And another car that looked really fast in the early part of the season but hasn't lived up to the hype, Michael Waltrip. He had a pole position earlier, I believe, at Bristol. He's sitting well outside of the top 12. He'll need a win in this race to get into the top 12. And he finishes the lap. That's a 17.75. And here is Bubba Wallace in the number 23 car, teammate of Jimmy and D Driver. Will he have a decent lap like Jimmy, or will he have a bad one like D Driver? We won't know. And he comes out of the turn smoothly. That is a 1765. Well done. And here's David Green, teammate to Sterling Marlin, Pinball Wizard, Jeremy Mayfield, Ricky Rudd, all those guys. All these Hot Wheels castings. And that's a decent looking lap. He slides a little bit, recovers. That's a 1550. He'll likely have a front row starting spot. And this is Martin Truex Jr., the fastest of the Lionel castings. He gets almost no pushback from the gate. Flies out into turn one. And he is flying through here, loses a little bit of momentum there at the wall, and that turns out to be a 1750, right on the bubble of getting in. Now here's Ace Grimm. He's only made one start so far this year. He's in an older Racing Champions. Puts him at a little bit of a disadvantage, unless your name's Rusty Wallace. And that's a DNF. Now up next is Elmo Langley. See what he's got. And that's a very shaky start. Loses a lot of speed there off the bat, and that's probably going to be a DNF. And he starts grinding against the wall, and that's a DNF. Up next is Johnson Jr. He's one of the newer drivers, just made his debut last week, and actually got into the seconds race. He's starting off pretty well. Looks fast coming out of the turns. Slides a little bit and goes off the track. That's a DNF. He won't be following up that strong debut with anything worthwhile because he won't be racing. And this is Harrison Burton. He's had several DNQs in a row. If he fails to qualify here, I doubt we'll be seeing him attempt the races much more often. And it doesn't look very good. That is a DNF for Harrison Burton. That may be the last time you see this car on this channel as he slides completely off the track. Almost hits one of the delivery vans. That is unfortunate. And this is Bobby Labonte. Bobby Labonte also, much like Jeff Gordon, showed some promise in the early part of the season, went into a couple of seconds races, and since then kind of petered out. Hasn't made very many other races so far, and it looks like nothing's going to change here. That's a DNF. Up next is Matt Kenseth. He also made his debut last week, and he made a lot of noise. Got an inside front row starting spot, but also a DNF in a rather violent fashion. It's quite a bit of pushback from the gate. I don't think that's going to affect him very much because he is absolutely flying out there. He glides along the rail, but it doesn't seem to slow him down at all. And that's a 1363. Holy cow, that's half a second quicker than the pole sitter Todd Bodine. We got ourselves a new pole sitter here. This is Ronnie McD. He's only made one race so far. He's failed to finish the qualifying lap all the other times, and that's not going to be any different. We may not see his car much longer. Same thing goes for Stacy Compton if he doesn't make it into this one. Definitely looks a lot better than Ronnie McD did. And he moves to the top to go into the corner. Looks actually pretty smooth coming out of the corner. He may finish this one, but he loses his momentum just shy of the finish line. That's a DNF for Stacy Compton. Stacy Compton, Ronnie McD. Now this guy, Kaz Growler, he's in the same boat. He is on the bottom of the barrel in terms of points, and he's gotten a lot of qualifying DNFs so far. This may be his last time on the channel too if he doesn't make it in on speed today, but it looks like he'll finish this lap. That is a 1584. He's going to get into the race today. You may be seeing a lot more of him after all. And this is Morgan Shepherd. And it looks like he hit a brick wall, an invisible brick wall there. Hasn't seemed to slow any of the other drivers down. Maybe he had some mechanical problems. But that is a DNF. And you can see here the car is very heavily damaged. And it looks like what happened was the top half of the car came apart from the bottom half. That will be the last time you see Morgan Shepherd's car on this channel. So here's Jimmy Means, the one Jimmy that we know the driver of the number 9 isn't now because he has his own car in the series. And that looks like it's going to be a DNF. Yep, that's a DNF. I don't know why I brought that car along. I guess to debunk the rumors that Jimmy Means is the driver of the number 9 car, I guess. You may not be seeing that car much longer either. And this is the moment y'all have been waiting for. It's Vinny Nightlife, fresh off the plane from Australia. He's jet lagged. He's hungover from too much partying last night. But he doesn't care. He's here to race and he's here to kick some butt. He's in a Ford Fairmont, the number 27, the legend himself. And that is a 1496. He's going to have a really good starting spot. And this here is Vinny's punk rocker cousin, Mo Hawk, sporting his favorite punk rock band on his car. And he looks a lot faster than all these other older racing champions, like Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Means, but it's still a DNF. We'll have to watch from the stands. And here's Ted Musgrave in a backup car. His car with the rubber tires, the axle was all tucked inside of the rear quarter panel. That thing couldn't go on any longer, so here's a backup car. I'm going to try and swap the rear axle out. In the meantime, before I have time to do that, he's going to use this car, and that car's not much faster than his old one. That's a DNF. And here is Swervin' Irvin in a backup car. I don't know why this car is getting DNFs. The wheels are smooth, but looks better than his old ride, which had rubber tires too, but one of those axles were bent as well. He hopped the curb a little bit on the single tracks, and that takes just enough momentum out where he may not finish. Not a good lap time, and yep, a DNF. And this is your starting lineup. You see Matt Kenseth as your pole sitter. Vinny Nightlife making his debut. He'll be starting in 4th place. Sandwiched between them is a couple of teammates, Todd Bodine and Jeremy Pinball Wizard Mayfield. And behind them are the rest of the field. Bubba Wallace is the last driver to get in on speed. Michael Waltrip, the only driver to finish his qualifying lap and not get in. The rest behind Bubba Wallace are in on points, starting with Jimmy, Jeff Fuller, and the rest of the crew. So there's your starting lineup for the Coca Cola 600. I can't wait for this. It'll be 6 laps per segment, 5 cars per segment. Lots of action. Remember to hit that like button, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys out there on the track.